This is going to be a pretty different video to the ones I usually do. I went to the MCM Expo in May this year, and pretty much me, my brother, and three other buddies all went as Mortal Kombat when cosplay was concerned. And pretty much me and Jake wanted to do Cyrax and Sektor, so it took a lot of effort. It took a lot of annoying hard work, but eventually we ended up with a finished result. I mean, here's the MK3 costume, which we based it on. We based it on the Mortal Kombat 3 look from the old game, and pretty much this is the end result that we ended up with. Me and my brother, anyway. I put a few pictures up of us at the expo, just with a few different people, what we would look like as a group, and there was other things. But this video is primarily how we managed to achieve these sort of costumes and how we went about them. So pretty much the way we started for the helmets was Sektor's helmet. I decided to buy an airsoft mask because the bottom half of this airsoft mask looked uncannily similar to the front mask anyway, so I bought that. And I also bought a regular baseball helmet, just a regular baseball helmet. And what I did then was I had to make sure it was the right thing. I was worried that any sort of saw work would crack the plastic and ruin it, but I was lucky and it didn't. I removed the cap end off those baseball helmets, and then I sanded them down to, obviously, when you do enough sanding, you end up with this nice regular looking helmet with no brim at all, because the brim would just get in the way. But what happens is when you combine the airsoft mask and the baseball helmet together, you've got a really nice base, model to work on. So pretty much the big part of it is done. The base shape is already there. It's ready to be worked on. And essentially, what we did next, well, not we, to be hand on heart, a friend of ours, Steve, who was cosplaying Sub-Zero with us, he is very, very, very fantastic at making costumes. He's very good at making things in general. He did pretty much the majority of it. The trimming of the baseball helmets was pretty much all I did. I'm not going to lie. Me and my brother Jake bought the assets. We bought everything ready to be done, but it really was Steve who put everything together and made it all happen. So big props to him. Very well done. He did a fantastic job. What we did next was Steve then took those base models and we got some card for him, because what Steve did was he cut some card to shape and he then laid the card over the helmets just for a base look, just for a prototype, to see that he was using the card to sort of essentially build on top of these helmets but without making them bulk out too much. But he obviously brought out the main features of the mask, and Steve created the eye pieces using the card and the front nose piece. It was all done using card. When that was done, Steve then took some lightweight clay. We used clay called Fimo Light. I'm not sure if you know what it is, but essentially it's a clay. It's extremely lightweight and it dries quite quickly. But the main thing about it is it's good for this sort of thing because the clay is extremely light and it doesn't weigh the helmet down. Because when the helmet was done, it was quite hefty anyway. But this Fimo Light really kept the helmet from just hurting your neck all day. But Steve essentially sculpted out just those top bits that go on the top of the helmet. He just sculpted those out in clay. And then when those were dry, Steve then took some plasticard, some thin plasticard. It doesn't matter what colour you use, just any old plasticard will do. And then what Steve did was he then traced over these card pieces, and then he cut it in plasticard instead. Now what the plasticard is, it's like the card, but like I said, it's the proof's in the name really. It's just like a plastic, but it's stronger, and it won't, it doesn't give, and it's tough, but it's almost like paper. You can manipulate it quite easily. So Steve then took the plasticard, and he put the eyepieces and everything else down in place of the card with the plasticard just swapped over it. He stuck this down using a mixture of super glue for some of the parts, but the majority of it was hot glue. Hot glue did a very nice job of just keeping everything together. And then what Steve then proceeded to do was me and Jake managed to get a hold of just some washing machine tubing, and it just so happened that the tubing we bought was it was the same sort of thickness as the holes in the side of the baseball helmets had. So, you can get that back tubing effect that the original costume helmets had, but it's it just has this really nice look to it. So obviously we cut those tubing down to size and we stuck those inside the helmets, again using hot glue to keep it all in place. What Steve then did was he spray painted both of them an undercoat of black. The undercoat essentially, obviously, it makes all the colours a lot nicer, but it's just this base, nice black undercoat, which we sprayed both helmets all over black. And then after that, Steve drilled the holes in the helmets. And that was essentially taking a power drill, because we bought some cable, just some regular wiring cable from a hardware store, and we essentially cut it in strips. We cut just under 1 meter each, because 1 meter would have gone a lot too long, but just under 1 meter of each. We went with 6 dreads each per helmet. Steve marked out, the pattern of dreads that we wanted, power drilled into the actual helmet. We knew that the helmet would have sustained it anyway, seeing as, if sawing it doesn't crack the plastic, drilling on the top of it won't. So we drilled the holes in the top of the helmet, fastened the dreads in, put some hot glue in there, and it held it all in place very nicely. Steve then painted everything. The actual majority of the helmet was, he painted the whole thing by hand. Again, because Steve's very talented at model painting and other things, so he did a very, very, very good job on the actual hand painting of the helmets. And I've got a picture now of the final product of both helmets finished. And moving on. The rest of it was with the chest pieces, we got some motocross armor, regular motocross armor, and that was just what's the word I'm looking for? My apologies. They were marked off with masking tape. All the foam and stuff were covered in gaffer tape, to allow, there's no drips and there's no anything going where it doesn't need to go. So you mark the entire thing off with gaffer tape, and then we got a spray paint for the desired colour we wanted, which was obviously red and yellow. And then we spray painted the whole thing. Spray painted it, a couple of coats after, and then the chest obviously was sprayed and ready to go. This was pretty much for most of the costume. The rest of the actual costume itself, armour piece wise, it was spray painting. After marking off all the bits you don't want to be red, mark it off with gaffer tape or bags or whatever you can use to mask it off, and then spray it all the desired colour. The arm pieces were just 2 sets of Umbro football shin pads, or soccer if you're American, but just shin pads to go on the arm, the bicep and the forearm. Originally the chest piece had these like frilly bits on the on the bicep. They sort of worked, but they moved too much and they weren't solid, so we ended up just cutting those off and going with the shin pads. The sash and the belt was done by, it was quite fortunate really, because it was mine and Jake's birthday has come up, so our mum had, we bought the materials, she and mum what we wanted, and bless her, she actually sewed those together for us as a birthday present. And she had this like sort of genius way of, we bought a couple of belts. The sashes weren't actually attached to the belt. Our mum had stitched in 2 sort of hoops that go on the top of each piece of the sash. You essentially just slot those into the belt and you can move them, wherever you want. But when you actually wear the belt, they stay in place. The shins were just gardening shin pads, which we bought off the internet. And the shins were just, like I said, marked off, spray painted, job done. A couple of coats and it was sorted. The actual undersuits we used were undersuits that are used for mainly people from the 501st sort of stormtrooper garrison. That's what they do, a lot of costuming for charity, but there's quite a few people on the internet that sell like just a regular black undersuit that you can wear with your stormtrooper outfit. Me and Jake found that worked perfectly for our Cyrax and Sektor one, so we picked up a couple of those and it was perfect. We bought a balaclava. Obviously, I tied my hair back, put it under the suit. Because the suit's quite tight, it did a nice job of just keeping my hair down without it coming out at the back. Put a balaclava on, and that was fine. I'm trying to think something I might have missed out. Oh yes, I'm aware that we didn't include the belt pouches on our costumes. They are something we are going to include, but we sort of ran out of time because Expo was very close. When the costumes were finished, we didn't actually have time to think how we would attach the pouches anyway. Obviously, we're going to use those and put those on before the October one, but obviously, we didn't have time this time. The boots were just, we took those arm bits that we cut off from the motocross armour and you actually hot glue them to a pair of cheap boots, and you've got this nice sort of foot armour stuff you've got. The rest of the armour was just fine-tuned details, which again Steve was good at, because Steve added weathering to a lot of the armour. He added a couple of Lin Kuei symbols to the arm pieces or the bicep pieces. We've got a couple of pictures of those. Steve also added weathering to the chest pieces, but he also put on Sektor and Cyrax's LK99 and 44, unit numbers. He added those to the top piece of the chest armour, which ended up looking really nice. Just a very, very nice touch. But pretty much in all, that's pretty much how, these Cyrax and Sektor costumes came about. I've got some more pictures down of us, with assorted other people, sort of having other pictures taken. I've got a picture down with, we found a little, found a dad and his kid. His little kid was dressed up as Scorpion. It was really awesome. But this is just how we managed to achieve this costume. If anyone there from the expo was watching this, I don't know if they are or not, but yeah, we'll be attending the October expo as well. We actually have a bigger Mortal Kombat group planned and a masquerade planned. I'm putting an audio track together for it now. But for all those that attended, thanks very much. It was really good to see you all there. The turnout we got was amazing. It was like on the Saturday, we were planning on costuming for both days of the weekend, but we were just hounded for photos so much on the Saturday we actually couldn't see the show. We couldn't, we moved 5 foot every 10 minutes and stuff. It was crazy. But pretty much that's how the Cyrax and Sektor costumes came about. Thanks very much to everyone that came. Thanks for all your support, and we'll see you all in October. Have a good one.